So Geraint was, well, he's been doing loads and loads of different projects over the years. And we first met at some Joomla days, and Geraint then was heavily involved in the manager for Joomla 3.10, the migration manager, which helps explain what you need to switch on, switch off, and how to do all of that. So everybody's probably come across some of his work. They don't necessarily know that it's him. And JEvents is one of his big projects, which we used to use years ago. And I use his, so I used to use a different one, but now I use YourSites. So I've been, right from the beginning, thought it was a really good product because I had a similar product, but this one just allows you to be in charge of it all. And I'm every so often nagging him to give us some documentation and let us know what the features are. Because often I'll message Geraint saying, do you know what it really could do with? And he goes, it does. It's like, okay. So he's here to show us all those things that we really wish it would do, but it already does, but we didn't know it. Geraint.
Yep. Right. Okay. So YourSites is basically, for people who don't know it, a site management tool. So it allows you to keep track of updates on your client sites, check their settings, check for how they're set up, their performance. But there's a few features that maybe people are not familiar with. So we're going to talk about a few of those and a few new things that are coming in. And out of that, I'd be interested in people's input into the next phase of development of one particular aspect, which I'm going to be running into, if that's all right. So something that's come up recently is people are asking about the update sites on Joomla, how they sometimes become disabled, the Joomla update site or extension update sites, and whether you can check them and reset them in YourSites. Well, you can. This is my list of sites. This is a development service. I've got some more sort of made up sites here running on my servers. And I can basically, where are we? Run the advisory settings scan for this site here. It trundles away and it checks a whole set of different things. One is the security and privacy headers, which I haven't got set up, so it comes up in red. It lists all the ones that haven't been set for me. I've got multi-factor authentication checks for various users who should have it set up, but don't. So they're highlighted in red. New feature which has come in recently is the ability to check for users receiving system emails, because one of my users suddenly discovered that a couple of their client users were receiving system emails, which they shouldn't have been. So there's a setting now which you can go off and check to make sure that no disabled users and no users who don't have access to the back end is configurable options there, but basically make sure that various people who shouldn't be getting system emails don't get system emails. People might have seen the weak password check already. Another one is dormant special users. I've come across many sites where super users, admins, or authors have been created and people haven't logged in for a long time. So you can, again, in YourSites, we can configure it so that we can see which users haven't logged in for a long time. And maybe they should be disabled as users if they have access to the site in a special way, but are not doing anything. Then we got some fairly obvious checks for compressed output checks for the content, JavaScript, and style sheets, checking that capture is enabled for user registration, checking if content versioning is enabled, making sure you don't plain text passwords, checking the file and folder writable status, checking live site settings and Joomla config. They're all fairly obvious things that people would want to check. Then here are the ones that we talked about just a moment ago. It tells you if the Joomla core update site is enabled and the extension update sites are enabled. It would list any that are not enabled. And I'll just run through the others and come back to that in a second. There's a configuration, there's a configurable option. You can create your own checks if you want. There's a sample PHP file in the package that has all the examples of how you can go and make a particular check on your client site. So you don't need to have, if you have a specialist requirement for some of your client sites, you can write a plugin file, it'll get installed onto your client sites automatically as part of your sites, and you can just run your special checks. It's not particularly complex to do that. Database text field size check. I found I had one of my articles suddenly got truncated because the text field in the content table wasn't big enough to hold it. And there's also checks for custom fields, because I had a real panic one day when my change log for one of my applications suddenly disappeared because the custom field value wasn't big enough, and it truncated, and the JSON file that it should have been generating was no longer valid, and my change logs disappeared, which wasn't very good. This site's not SSL, so I'm not checking the SSL certificates or the redirect to HTTPS, and it's not a www domain either, but you can check for secure sites and that your redirects are set up. But I'll just touch on how we would do the, what was it I was going to show you? Oh yes, the live sites, the update sites. If we go back to here, currently we can rebuild the update sites on the client site. So you don't need to log into your client site. You can select your site in the list, go to core software and click on rebuild update sites. The next phase, I will provide a list of all the update sites so you can enable them and disable them from within your sites. A couple of things you might not have seen. You can put the site offline or online. I want it to be offline and change. You can even put your own custom offline message in. Save that. Is that taking a while? Yeah, it is. So the site is now offline. And if I go into the site here on another tab, you see it's gone offline, and you can see the custom message has been set up. So I'll just put that back online. And we can change the caching settings to the different types of caching that you have. And you can change the error reporting to the different levels of error reporting you want. So basically, I can see on this second site that the caching is off. I can see that the error reporting is set to maximum. So these are flagged in red because these are probably not the settings you'd want on a production site. And again, we can do the same thing with debug mode. So those are things people might not have seen before. Another thing you can do is if we select a site.
Geraint, can I ask,
yes.
can you do them globally?
Yep.
So you've just shown it singly. Let's say I suddenly realized I liked that bug recently. Oh my days, I've left a load of sites in debug mode. I can see
Yes.
which ones they are. Could I actually do them all across the board?
Yeah, yes, I think so. I can't remember which menu item it is. Yes, actually, if you can, this is a little trick you might not know. Any of these little icons here, if you've selected more than one site, if you click the icon, you can disable debug mode on all those sites all in one go. So you don't have to go to a menu at the top. These shortcuts will work on all the clicked sites in one go. Does that make sense?
Really clever. Yeah, that's really clever. I bet it's not documented.
No, well, it's accidental. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Actually, talking about documentation, I'll show you. I'll just digress briefly as to why I got involved in the guided tours because I thought I'm not very good at writing documentation, but I can do a guided tour, walk people through what they need to do. So I thought I'd set my own guided tour up. I've set one up here. Checking your site is up with YourSites. So I ran this tour to show you a check that all your client sites are using YourSites and that they're up. Oh, I can't click on the checkbox. So that was the first bug that I discovered in the guided tours, which is if your tour has more than one interactive button in it, two of the steps have a button in them, then you can't interact with a checkbox if that's the case. So that's one of the early fixes that I've done in for guided tours. And there's a whole load of other things which I've been working with Olivier to enhance the guided tours to allow us to do more clever things. The other thing I need here is I've got menu items which respond, and I want to be able to click into a sub-level item as one of the steps. And there's no way in the guided tours as it is now to have like a pre-step action. So it's another feature that I've been working on putting in. But anyhow, I digress. Database fixes, you might not realize we can do that. We can run a DB fix check and repair. So it runs off and it goes off and checks the database fixes that you can do in the back end of a site and make sure that they're all up to date. I need to provide more information about that so you can actually be warned that you need to do that. You will see it in the advisory setting scan. If your site has some database fixes that are needed to be applied, the advisory setting scan will tell you that. And yes, system emails. How do you configure the system email checks? So if we go to the configuration, site advisory, you could basically configure all the checks that you want to apply. So here we can check that the super users and admins are using multi-factor authentication. You can set it up for editors, authors, and publishers as well. This is the check for dormant users and what constitutes a dormant user. So we could say 1, 2, 3, 6, or 12 months for deciding if a user is dormant. And you don't have to, like, if you don't want to do content versioning, you can switch off that check and you won't be checking your sites for content versioning going forward. So the test for users receiving system emails come in here. So basically, the rule is that we check for users who've been blocked or deactivated, and for those who don't have the permission to create other users in the back end of Joomla. That's the rule we've decided for the very minimum criteria for receiving system emails. The database text field checks. At the moment, the only check that it does is on custom field values. So remember me saying about the change logs disappearing because my custom field value was corrupted. So I'm going to add other fields in there. So if you have other text fields that you think we should be checking to make sure that they're large enough, then we can look at that. And basically what it does is it will go away to the client sites and look at custom field values that are getting close to the maximum size of the text field. So if you have a medium text field and you have a custom field value, which is like over 90% of the value of the maximum length of text field, it'll flag that and warn you, hopefully before you have your data corrupted. All right, okay, so that's there. Yes, so yes, so one of the things that people have been asked about recently is they have a lot of sites and they basically manage it from multiple accounts. So they have different managers managing groups of sites, and they didn't want to have the same people receiving all the emails. They wanted emails on a site-specific basis. So what we've done now is if you edit a site, down here, we can add in an email address to receive a site-specific notification. So you don't necessarily just send them to the single manager of all the sites within your sites. You can basically You know, like if Philip, you have an assistant, I believe, who works with you, you could set your assistant up to receive some of the emails about sites being down for some specific sites and so forth.
Stacy. So if I was to do
Stacey.
that there, then if I don't fill it in, it will come to me. But if I do fill it in, it will go to Stacy.
Exactly. And where are we? Oh yes, another one was when you perform actions like upgrading extensions or upgrading Joomla or creating a backup, what the system's been doing is the action logs on the client side say that it was your sites that did it. Now, some users said their clients didn't want to, they wanted their clients to know that they were doing it as opposed to some unknown name like YourSites. So what we've done now is added in the configuration, the advanced settings. Here at the top, you can set a username there. It doesn't have to be a username that exists on the client site. It's just a name that's used that will appear in the action logs as the person who's performed the actions on the client site. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really handy.
So that's probably helpful in terms of making sense for your clients. Yes. Another one which came up recently was a conflict between SiteGround and Cloudflare. Now, I don't mean it's an actual conflict between SiteGround and Cloudflare. It's just that SiteGround and Cloudflare needed the user agents for the communication from your sites to be set in quite a different way. So if you set the user agent in a way that SiteGround liked, then Cloudflare would refuse to take the connection. And if you had it set to allow it to go to Cloudflare, then SiteGround could choke on it. So we basically here will allow the mechanism to put your own client custom user agent in. So you can, if you encounter those problems, you can set a user agent that will hopefully avoid those problems. All right, talked about that. Right, okay, something that came up, I believe, last time I gave a presentation, was it, Philip, you're asking about, you've got clients who keep putting Google fonts into their articles or something. Was that what you were saying? Or somebody else was that they had privacy issues about content that's being created and their users were putting inappropriate things which might be breaking GDPR in their content.
Being from the UK, I wouldn't bother, but that's exactly the sort of thing that Benjamin talks about. So yes, I think it wasn't me, but I think others have been saying that.
Right, yes. So basically, if you have content on your client sites which you want to avoid because it's sticking in cookies, so there might be somebody's embedding a YouTube video or somebody's embedding Twitter links and things. You might be breaking your privacy requirements. The other thing is you might have some users who put ridiculous formatting into their content, and you want to be able to check across all your sites who's been doing this, who's been putting in inappropriate material into their content. So what we've done is we've added a new feature which adds as a plugin into the enterprise version of YourSites. So it's not the basic, it's the one up from that, called checking content. And we can search content items. You can search across multiple sites. In this case, we're just doing on one site. And I can search for, let's say, the word another. It goes away. And on this client site has one item that has the word another in it, and it's called another post. And if we were to go into content checks, content search summary, you can see here the word search string another appears, and here's the title of the article, another post. And we provide a one-click edit. So it basically goes straight into the client site. It just happens that it's running on the same site here, but it would work on a client site. I can go into this post and remove the item that I don't like in the content. Does that make sense what I'm talking about?
That does. So where is it?
Well, if the keyword that you don't like, you know, you go in,
So,
go
so
in, and
when you say
well,
content, is it the title, alias, and the main area?
it's the title, the title, the main content, and any text custom fields. I believe. To be honest, not enormously. It certainly is not um, responsive. Well, it is responsive in that it'll behave on a smaller screen, but as you say, there's too much there to be working on a phone with it. It's really designed at least for a tablet. No, accessibility is not something that it's good at, I'm afraid. Yeah, I don't know how you would, you know, it would take a lot of work. Right. Well, something you can do, I don't know if you know about, is we can go to the layouts and we can create custom list layouts. And we can go to sites, add a layout, and we can call it Gary. And and you can choose which fields you want to show in it. So site name, core version, uptime stats. Save and close that. And if we now go to sites, we should have Gary as a layout, and it shows just those 3 columns. So you can create your own versions. You can also yeah, you can do the same thing for extensions and backup lists as well. And got a mental block. Yeah, yeah. You can add custom fields to your sites, so you can create sort of like a CRM type situation. So you can add, you know, actions, and if you use your subform type fields, you can basically create fairly complicated management tools. If I show you the project status view, should come any second. No, it's slow.
If
No,
I can,
let's go.
if I can cut in about the accessibility and colorblind, and
Yes.
your use of colors is quite bright in a good way. So
In a good way. Good.
yeah, it's not
Well,
beautiful, but it's bright
no.
and clear.
Yeah. Well, we can change. Where is it? Sorry, I can't remember. There's too many options here. We can actually change some of the colors as well.
Right.
So on the colors to indicate the green, orange, and red. So I know green and red are not always good for people who are colorblind. We can change these to be other colors. So you can have blue and yeah.
I mean, I'm really interested in what you were about to show with the custom fields, though, because you were saying CRM.
Yes, yes. Can I just give me just one second? Let's go back to this, the searching for content very briefly on that one. And then I'll come on to the custom fields. So the searching for content, schedule processes, on this is on editing an individual site. We have here, we can set up a schedule for searching for particular content, and we can add your own oh, can't spell, naughty words. You can basically add your own search strings, or you know, just Microsoft formatting text for people cutting and pasting from Word and things. But basically, the schedule will basically work with the cron job. So once you've got a cron job for checking the sites up, that Joomla needs updating and so forth, it would also check your content searches for you as well. so that when you then go to the content search summary, not that one, the oh, that's a different one. I need to show you that in a minute. Yes, you probably wouldn't want to be checking all the content items for specific text every half hour. Probably not a good idea. To be honest, I've not. Most of the load is going to be on the client side as opposed to the server side. The server side just sends off a request, so it's distributed out through the client sites. But obviously, if you've got quite a few client sites all on one shared managed hosting account and you hammer it with lots of requests at the same time, you might be in trouble. But there's, if we go to the background task, yes, exactly. So you can see in the task manager. If you go here on the left, the background tasks, it tells you when the next checks are going to be run. Also, when you go into the configuration and you go to scheduled processes, as well as giving you information about how to set up your cron jobs, there's a little suggestion of how often you need to run your cron jobs. So it tells you how often you need to run the different cron jobs and how you would set them up. There's also here. Yes, so here you have the Joomla version checks. The default is to check once a day, doing in batches of 20 sites at a time, and only notifying you once a day. And you can basically change the batch sizes and the intervals between them for the different checks. So you'd obviously check that a site is down. In this case, we check that every 2 minutes, and we do it in batches of 5 sites at a time. So you can tweak these so you don't you can balance up the load that you want to apply.
So for example, when I'm doing backups would really hammer the server. What I've done is I've used grouped all of my sites onto the different servers I have. And then, so we've actually got a column which says which server it is. And we then go through and make sure that when we're scheduling anything, we schedule only one site to be backed up, give it like 15, 20 minutes, and then the next site. But we can then do another one on another server at the same time. And so we're never doing more than one site at the same time, but we might be doing 3 different sites.
Yes. So what you can do also when you're editing a site is you can put in a tag. And let's say this site is going to be on server 1, and you can have a tag to say which server they're all on, so you can then easily filter and say, I want just the sites that are on server 1.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Yeah, we name them and put them as tags. And then you can literally go through and see you've got your scheduling. You never schedule the same 2 sites on the same server.
No. And the other thing, I don't know if you knew, Philip, is that, well, this site doesn't have backup on it. Let's go back to another one. You can set up, where are we? Yeah, you can use the global backup settings, or you can put your own backup times in for a specific site. So this one we can now set to be backing up on a daily basis at 2:15 in the morning. So you can basically set a site-specific backup schedule. And if you wanted to, you could have a second one at 2:15 in the afternoon if you wanted to.
Yeah, that is actually exactly what we do. I never thought of doing the second one, but yes, no, that's exactly what we do.
No, you can't do a batch. You can't do that on a batch basis, I'm afraid. No, you'd have to edit the entries. Right. So can I show you one other thing first, and then I go on to custom fields? Is that right, Philip?
You've got You've got an hour. Just go for it. Whatever
Oh,
you
right. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I really don't like Google knowing everything that I'm doing, and there's the GDPR stuff, and you give too much information. So I would like to be able to have my own measurement of performance and visits and stuff. So we've got a bit of that built in already in Joomla. We've got the hits counter, but the hits counter doesn't get updated when you have caching enabled. So one thing we just put into YourSites is a content statistics tool. It goes off and it will pull from the client sites that you've configured to allow it the hits counter for each of your content items. So if I go to the site outside of YourSites, just open it properly. And so this is now one of my, I'm just acting as if it's one of my client sites. If I go into the client server here, content search and statistics. So I can disable all that content searching, and I can also disable hits counter updates and sharing that information with YourSites on this tab. So my goal is to add more performance metrics into this tool so that you can pull your performance information from your client sites into YourSites. But of course, we have that problem with the caching, especially if you have page caching enabled, where the hits counter doesn't update. So is the site back online? Yeah. So if I choose this article here, and the hits counter 227, it's not updating each time I refresh the page. So when somebody's coming in, picking up the viewed cached page, but it's not giving you any extra information. But if I go into YourSites and where are we? Fetch the content stats. I can go to performance statistics. And you see here, this article here, which is Welsh link Allanol 233 is the counter, hopefully. Yeah, it's bigger than that 227. Keep updating this. I can go back to my site list, and you're going to tell me now I should be able to do it on the screen that I was on previously. Get the content statistics again. Go back to my performance stats, and it's gone up to 236. And basically what we've done is we've created a little Ajax JSON-driven JavaScript tool that is loaded at the end of the page load, and it updates the hits on individual article views. So your hits counter can now go up even if your pages are cached. So you can see what you've been viewed. So one thing I'd be interested in knowing is what people think of that idea and whether they think we should be trying to capture more information and what sort of information we should be capturing.
That's absolutely brilliant. So that is something that I've already wondered about, because what I do is I've got a little plugin on some of my sites where I hit the hits counter and reset it every month, because the thing is the hits counter is useless as it is, because you might have had an article that's 10 years old and another one that's a month. You can't see the velocity, you can't see the acceleration in, you can't see if it's stale or if it's, people are interested. So that's one of the things I'm really interested in, is like monthly stats, and I can see that you could then pull that sort of thing out of this.
Yes.
But also the caching has always been an issue. So this is absolutely brilliant. What about Lightspeed cache? Would it still count with Lightspeed cache?
As long as the page is, so the Lightspeed cache, it should work, because it would store the whole page in the Lightspeed cache, wouldn't it? Which includes a little bit of JavaScript.
Yeah.
Hang on, let's go. Lost my article now.
Yeah, because I use Lightspeed Cache on my servers, and I see the hits counters going up, but I don't feel it's as reliable as it was on my other server. So there's obviously
Yes.
something happening.
So on the bottom of this, so there's this JavaScript here called hitsmin.js, and the page here has two pieces of information: the base URL and the article ID. So all this JavaScript is doing an XML HTTP request, sending the information to the base URL, which is provided, and it's got the article ID. So it's two pieces of information from the site. So it should work with Lightspeed as well.
It's brilliant. Well done, you.
So, right.
Can you show that page again? Could you add stats or something showing?
Yes. Yeah. Give me a second. I'll try switching back. So here I'm showing on this test article, you can see the number of hits, the change from 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, and 1 month. And I can actually configure that. So my hits columns, I can have the first column, how much has changed over any of those periods of time. The second, so you could have 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months if you wanted to. And so you can get your measure of velocity.
That is really good. Thank you. So how long have I had that as a enterprise user and not known about it?
About 2 or 3 weeks at most. So my plan was to basically, when Joomla 4.3 came out, I was going to be doing a Joomla Day session then. I was going to reveal it at that point and get your thoughts on it. But it's been delayed until now. So it's only just available.
Brilliant. Okay.
Right. So custom fields. We wanted to talk about that. Here I've got I've got my own multi-field type, which allows me to add. It's a bit like the subform field, but it works better with the layout. I probably need to do a proper. I haven't thought this through as how to present this, so I'm doing this on the fly. I edit this site. Is it here? No. Oh, project status. Since I've got the group, I've got it here. So I can, in this case, I've got the scope of the project. So I can basically say that the client project is unstarted, awaiting response, completed, or whatever. The contract, the designs, and some comment on that. Comments about the design, the scope, hosting discussions, and so forth. And if I go to my project status view, I need a bigger screen for this. I can see the client contract status, the site development status. I don't need all that. I've been playing with this. I don't ignore everything to the right of the site development. I can actually should be able to filter my custom field. Why is it not appearing? Thought I had that built in. Maybe I'm getting confused with. No, I'm getting it confused with JEvents. But I can add that into this. So if I go back to the project status view, that we could basically have a filter that would allow you to find all the contracts that are where the contract is awaiting client sign off and so forth. And we could get the list of those. We can edit these fields in situ. And we should be able to. Why is that not working? There's a couple of things that are not working in the last few weeks because we updated the UI kit and I had to change things, so that I'll need to go back and look at that. But you should be able to save that and update the entry on the fly. I think I probably need to do definitely a tour or something like this.
Yeah, so you built the whole thing from custom fields, so it's not So it doesn't exist. If I go to my version,
Instance, yes,
it's
you
not.
won't have this, no,
No.
because
Okay.
you can create it to your own requirements.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I really like that. And you said to ignore everything right off, but I mean, you've got database size and you've got total file size.
Yeah.
Are they things that should work soon?
Oh yeah, those are there already. That's there
They are.
already. So yes, so if I go to the site information view, which you'll have on yours already,
Yeah.
it gives you the total file size. It gives you the temporary folder size, the cache size,
Wow.
and yeah, and the database size. And I believe I've tried this recently. I can clear the temporary files on that site. Next time I get the update, it would that field should have been cleared, but it should allow you to just to clear the
That's amazing. Because I've
temporary
got
files.
one really irritating client who has really large sites.
The other thing is if you have backups enabled, I don't know whether we need to make this more available, but in the backup settings, yes, this is if you enable cloning, you can basically leave specific folders out of your clone. But the side effect of that is that you get to see the size of all the folders on your client sites. So if you've got clients that are uploading lots of images all the time, you can see the images via that. At the moment, you have to have cloning enabled to see that information. It is cached once every 24 hours because obviously it takes a bit of time to calculate that. So the first time you'd open the site each day, it can take a couple of minutes to get that information from a site. But I'd be interested to know what people think would be good to include in sort of like your own private white labeled statistics tool. Yeah, do we want to know about browser information? Do we want to know about geographic information?
So the big argument I often have with clients is mobile versus desktop.
Yeah.
Because one or two of them say they don't need to they don't need to optimize for mobile because they don't have many mobile viewers. And I point out they don't have many mobile viewers because they're not optimized for mobile.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
I go, oh yeah, but to actually have across my servers, across all of my sites, what the average should be, and to be able to then say you're below average, above average, whatever, would be a good way to find the worst offenders.
Yeah.
You know, because with Google Analytics at the moment, which we're all kind of phasing out of, it's not very useful because I can't compare stats across my sites. Whereas with something like this, where I can see all my sites and see see a lot of different sites and the specific stats on those sites, it's brilliant because if I could order by mobile or desktop percentage, by speed of load, page load, which you already got on the front.
Yeah.
That's all those sorts of bits of information are really handy. Then yeah, it would really help narrow on some of the clients, and the fact that you've got the hits within it on, I mean, maybe
Yes. Well, this could be split by mobile and desktop. I basically suggest we do that on the size of the viewport as opposed to any user agent sniffing.
yes,
So you could have like 2 or 3 different viewport groupings and aggregate the information either as total hits, phone, tablet, and computer or something. That would be very easy to do and completely private.
okay. Well, I built that into the very first thing that I built, which I used to show at JoomlaLondon about over 15 years ago now, and that was. I know. No, but and it's interesting what you say because that was I built it the other way around. I built it from oh my days, because in those days servers were extremely expensive and my load. I mean, sometimes the loads would be ridiculous. So with what we were trying to do, so I built it from the load point of view. So I had like a cron system. Cron jobs. But they would only trigger. My scripts would only trigger if the load was below a certain value. Do you remember that? So basically it was like the crons would want to kick off, and they could continue if the time had passed. They could continue to go as long as the load was below a set value.
And how would you measure the load? Did you have a
measures the
system
load?
script?
I just had a script that measured the load. Yeah, I used to do it from. Well, I just did the same as what Geraint does effectively, but this was donkey years ago. I had my SF Dev, which is what I now have his thing on, and I used to run it from that. And because it was on the server, and in fact I extended it so that I had 2 or 3 different clients sites that were running on the different servers, and they would basically all report back the server load. It's PHP script that can check the.
But was it running a shell command?
Yeah, shell commands to find the server load. And you can get that back 1, 5, and 15 on most servers. So I mean, one of the checks would be is, do I get a sensible value back from the server? If I do, I can do that. If I don't, then okay, it's been set, so I can't get the information back. You could do that, and then you would never, you could set your level to be. I mean, I think I used to set my level to 5. So if I had more than 5 processes per second going, a load of 5, then I would not continue doing anything else until the load went below it.
Well, from the other way around, you know that we can track the performance. Whenever we check that the site is up, we look at the site performance. It might not be, this isn't a very interesting graph, but it basically gives you the load time each time it checks the web page. It tells you how long it took to load. So, this time it took 500 milliseconds. This one, it took 1.2 seconds. So there's obviously something slow or wrong going on at that point.
So you could actually then do it per site. You could say, don't run any of my checks if my load speed is below, the last load speed checked was above a certain value.
Yes, if you're running the checks frequently enough, yes, you could do that. Yeah. I think I've shown people before. Have I? About no. If you're checking the site is up, which is something you should be doing reasonably actively, mind you, the caching affects that as well.
Benjamin's got a question.
Hi, Geraint. I tried to use your tool in the past, and to be honest, I don't use it now for the following reason. What we are doing in our website, we are shutting down the backend completely. So you need a certain combination of password and also cookies.
Right.
So the question is, and to be honest, I didn't look into it the last month, but do you still make the request, the Ajax requests to the back end of the Joomla or to the front end? Because front end would be open up.
Yeah, I think you can. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty certain I set it up at one point to do both. You can do one or the other. We have various access control methods. So so some sites use an intermediate page. So you have to hit a certain odd URL which sets a cookie, which then allows you to get access to the back end. That was what do we do? Those are the pop-up ones. Yeah, a 2-step one. Yeah, so RSF, the RS firewall had a backend password, which basically sets a cookie, which then redirects back to the back end. But that's certainly something you can do. I'm 99% certain you can go via the front end. It doesn't go via the back end. But I just need to double check. I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
I can show you my use case when we talk next time.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But it's nice to know. Thanks.
So basically, what you don't use the back end at all. You make it very difficult.
We use the back end, but it's not easy to access the back end. So as a normal person, you will never access our back end, and as a user,
no.
You will never access, and you have to guess very good to access our backend, which is
yes. I'm pretty certain from memory that we try the back end, and if we can't do the back end, it does the front end. I think that's what it does, but I need to double check. I can't remember, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we have it. We have, I guess, a running license somewhere, so I will check there.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
No worries. I think I've shown people before about using forms, checking that forms are working, because one of the things that irritates me is sometimes my contact forms stop working, and somebody emails me and says, I've been trying to get hold of you for the last 2 weeks and my contact form's been down for 2 weeks. But basically we can set up a form to check, and you can basically put the URL of the form in and choose the form on that page, which there isn't a form on that page, but you choose the form and then you choose the values you want to put in the form and then the value you want to check to get back on the screen to say that the form has been submitted properly. So that's a way of making sure that your contact forms are working properly.
OMG, I have that problem recently, and that is absolutely brilliant. That's amazing.
Yeah, so a lot of these things just come out of people's real experiences. So if things don't do what you expect, and you've got a use case like Benjamin's one just now, then we'll look at it. It's not going to be difficult to put in.
You have really extended this a lot.
But you can see why I want to do tours, because writing documentation for this stuff is really tricky. But
Yes.
having a tour would be really, you can basically say, how do you set up your first site, and takes you through it, and then how do you check forms, and how do you set up your cron jobs. It's where people actually are.
Is there anything else that you wanted to show us, Geraint?
No, I think that was it. Let's see if there's anything else.
I'd really like to work with you on the Google Stats stuff, because we've got I'm knackered after cycling all day, but we do reports for clients, and this is brilliant. This would really be a very useful tool for getting those together. Is there an export on things like the stats? So we could
Not yet, but I've been thinking about because one of my things that have been holding me back is how to aggregate and present the information, because everybody's going to want to present it in a different sort of way. So one of my thoughts is to create blocks of information, and you'd basically choose which blocks that you want to display into your client information, and it would either allow you to email your client site or to export it. Yeah, and the things like the custom fields, I need to write something up about that and give you a bit more information, because the things like you can use it also to track payments that are due from your clients and who's paid and who hasn't paid and things like that. So you could have a view that would have a client view, which would give you a list of sites created for a particular client and who's paid and so forth.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Great. Well, that is
Okay.
fantastic. Is there any questions from anyone else? Yeah,
Yep,
I mean, I use it a lot for when I've got extensions that are out of date, or we've got to track down something, a bug in an extension. You do a lot of work on a site, you finally get to it, and you think, well, how many other sites have got that extension? Well, I use YourSites to tell me.
Notifications, yes, yep, yeah. Well, we do push notifications, so we've got a. I can't do it on this one because this isn't a secure site. But if you're running your sites on a secure site, you can edit the configuration, set up your VAPID keys, and enable push notifications, so that on your browser, computer, or on your phone, you'll get a notification if a site is down or if a site needs updates and so forth. I've got one idea, which is to write a plugin for Home Assistant that would listen to notifications, and it would get it to turn the light on in the bedroom at night, just using standard browser push notifications, built-in push notifications in browsers at the moment. So, and email notifications we get. If you go to the configuration and to the scheduled processes, you get you can set the notification sender, the email, and who gets the email. And you can send, we saw the option there to set site-specific notifications earlier. You can say whether it goes to the site owner, to the email address is set in the site entry, or to both the site owner and the site notification address. Yes, so here's the VAPID keys. They're set up automatically for you. notifications, yes. So Joomla updates, you can say I only want notifications once every day for my Joomla updates. I only want notifications once every day for my extension updates, and you'll get an aggregated email. So basically, you get an email to say 12 sites have got Joomla updates required, and you get an email once a day on that basis. And that's where some people wanted to split that email either on an individual site basis or they wanted it in groups of sites.
That's
So
brilliant.
basically, you can configure how often you get these notifications by email. And with the site down, another one is you can set it basically in an individual site to say the site has to be down for 2 or 3 minutes before it's considered down, because sometimes if a site's just rebooting or something, you don't want a notification to
That's
30 seconds later.
That's the most I get a false negative on, but I don't mind it. So I'll sometimes wake up in the morning and find that a particular site has been down, it says, and I go straight to it and it's fine. It's not a problem at all.
Yes.
So
Yes, I get that sometimes when the site's running a backup. You know, the
Yes.
server can be running so slowly that it's deemed to be down.
Yes, but no other ones on the server are deemed to be. So I don't quite know what triggers it, but I've had it recently, 2 clients who don't do their domain names through me, who've forgotten to pay for their domain names. And the first thing we found is basically their site's disappeared. So that was really useful to be able to say to the client, to check it all out and then be able to call the client and say, I think you've not paid for your site, which is, but the thing is, one of the things I didn't do was I wasn't rude to them. And one of the features that you have is you don't do any nasty messages or insulting comments.
No, I try not to.
No, you do. So, just because there are other options out there, which will do the more insulting way. But no, yours is more presentable, much more presentable to the clients. Sounds great. Este's asking about how you would get about using the tool with a team. Can you assign sites to specific team members?
To individual different people to manage the sites, you mean by teams, or do you mean Microsoft Teams?
No, I think it's different.
People working with you, if you can assign some sites to some people and some sites to others.
Yes.
Control.
That's something's been talked about. Basically, you're talking about like an ACL system and assigning groups of sites to different users, that sort of thing. Yeah. Let's see. I did do some thinking about that. I've got permissions here. These are on a site-by-site basis. So different individuals can come in and let's go back. Let's go to here on editors. What can they do? Editors can edit. Yeah, managers can't update software and extensions, but you could set it up. You could set up user groups. It might not be set up enough to limit which sites they'd be able to see. I could probably set that up. Yeah, because in fact, if the user's using this, then they're probably going to want to be able to update the software, install extensions, do everything, aren't they? If you're allocating roles. Yes, my issue is documentation and marketing. I enjoy the coding too much.
Don't we all?
Right.
Well, thank you so much for that. That is loads, and I'm now going to go back and find half of these features, and know that there's some features that are definitely there, but I can't find them. But that's brilliant. Thank you so much.